Welcome, welcome, and bienvenidos. Thank you for joining us on Tech and Tequila. I am so excited. Can y'all believe it is the last quarter of this year? And I don't know about you, but I plan on closing this year strong. I'm your host, Kat Lopez Shelby, your Techie Chica digital nomad. And of course, I'm here to guide you through the stories that connect innovation, community, and culture. On this show, if it's your first time joining us, a double welcome to you. And of course, if you're returning, we're super excited to see you again. We pour more than tequila. We pour into conversation with trusted tech partners, entrepreneurs, and of course, change makers who are shaping the way we work, live, and play. And of course, with a side of staying cyber safe. So every episode comes with a splash of tequila knowledge because whether you're scaling a business or savoring a sip, it's about finding the right blend of tradition and innovation. So grab your glass, lean in, and toast to big ideas, bold moves, and a strong finish in 2025. And of course, with it being the last quarter, I'm super blessed to have Dr. Jenna W. Clack on here with me. Welcome, Dr. Jenna.
Thank you, Kat. I'm glad to be here.
So, we would not be Tech and Tequila without covering some fun tequila facts. So I am going to take a moment to go over something. Traditionally, we have a shot of tequila, but hey, it's Friday and it's like 9:30 in the morning. So I thought we will wait for the evening. So if you have tequila or you're listening to this the evening, go ahead, drink up, sip. But I wanted to take a moment to spotlight some leading women in the tequila industry in 2025, because we are nothing here at Tech and Tequila if we're not about female empowerment. So first and foremost, 2025 has been a super big year, especially for women making moves in the industry of tequila. I have 5 fun facts for you. And of course, they're all powered by the bold leadership moves of some change-making ladies. So one of those ladies is Jenna W with El Tercero. So if you haven't heard of this year, she became the first woman in nearly 90 years to lead El Tesoro de Don Felipe. Okay, for the people that I am making that sound awful, I apologize. I work the best I can, but you know what? The most important thing is that we are highlighting her. So as both a master distiller and a CEO, she is rewriting the family history with every pour this year. The second thing is, of course, Graciela Grace Gonzalez and Es Casa Tequila. So in 2025, Miss Graciela launched Es Casa Tequila, an ultra premium triple distilled spirit using heirloom yeast and single estate agave. So it's bold, it's small batch, and of course, it is completely her vision. So the other thing is women in the Tequila Regulatory Council. So out of 194 tequila companies, 18 are now run by women. And more importantly, they're gaining decision-making power in the Tequila Regulatory Council by shaping the rules of the industry itself. So, we got to be in all levels, right? We can't just be, in sales. We got to be the CEOs. We got to be on the board. We got to be everywhere. And of course, I would be remiss without talking about 1953 tequila by women for women. This female-led brand manages everything from farming to distilling. Named for the year Mexican women won the right to vote. It's tequila with a mission of empowerment. So take a moment. The reason the tequila is named 1953 is because that's the year that in Mexico, women gained the right to vote. So, and I will say our fifth and last, but obviously not least, we're going to talk about one of my personal favorite tequilas, which is Casa Dragones. And Berta Gonzalez Neves is, of course, the CEO of Casa Dragones. And she is Mexico's first female maestra tequilera. She continues to redefine luxury tequila with vision and impact. So if you haven't tried Casa, I will say give it a try today. You can pick it up at Specs, Total Wines. It has a really good distribution model. It's great. And it's smooth because you know what? Tequila is meant to be sipped, not taken shots of. I mean, you can take shots, but it's really meant to be sipped. So the next time you raise a glass, remember you're not just tasting tradition, you're sipping empowerment, innovation, and history in the making. So now we are going to discuss some great topics today. And one of those topics is going to be about community. And before we get into it with Dr. Jenna W. Clack, who is very lovely and here today, I wanted to take a moment because one of the things that Shelby Tech, which I own, is huge about is about being part of the community. And part of that is, we work all over Texas and I work with clients all over the world, but a lot of what we do is in West Texas. And recently we were blessed to be part of National Petroleum Day. So I want to kind of take a moment to talk about that because first off, West Texas had its first annual National Petroleum Day event, and it was August the 27th, 2025. Now, if you haven't heard of that, you're maybe wondering, what does it matter? What is going on? So National Petroleum Day honors Edward Drake's first oil well in 1859 that sparked the modern energy movement. For the first time, of course, this year, the Permian Basin celebrated it together, students, families, industry leaders, and nonprofits all under one roof. So the event was held this year at the Petroleum Club of Midland. And of course, one of the main honorees for the event was Sandra Shiplett, who at age 85 received the Heritage Award with a standing ovation for receiving the award. It was to honor her legacy in the Permian Basin oil and gas industry through the years. So, this event was great and I really enjoyed being a part of it. I want to thank, of course, the National Petroleum Day Foundation and, of course, Natalie Cargile for letting us be a part of it. But I also want to take a moment to talk about some of the key takeaways. And, of course, from the event, some of the key takeaways were, honoring tradition, honoring people's heritage, recognizing real people, of course, like Miss Sandra Shiplett and everyday heroes. Of course, the collective impact, because part of National Petroleum Day, they had a West Texas food drive. They did scholarship innovations. They did a silent auction that went to the Young Women's Leadership Academy in Midland, Texas. And of course, a sense of belonging. It's, the essence of I'm a part of this. And of course, so are you. And if you don't know anything about the energy sector, it's that, everything from your engineers to people in the fields to the people behind the tech, it is a vast swath of people. Of course, some of the memorable moments of this event was, of course, Mr. Mickey Cargile declaring Midland the petroleum epicenter, of course, sparking hometown pride and lots of excitement. Libby Stevens reminding us that oil companies over the last, several years have given over $100 million to West Texas families through the West Texas Food Banks and other nonprofits. And of course, generations uniting. So when Sandra Shipley accepted her award, it was all about, honoring the past, being in the present, and of course, looking forward to the future all in one moment. So I would be very remiss if I didn't give a great big shout out to, of course, Bite Harder Industrial Networks, John and Heidi Kirk, because they helped with that event or helped with Shelby Tech being part of that event and helped with our booth. And of course, Viasat for making the trek to West Texas because, Mr. Robert Jimenez came down and, it was great to have them there, have them representing, and of course, be a part of the event. So while this is just the beginning and this was the first annual, I know the organizers are planning another National Petroleum Day next year. You can definitely get involved. We will put the link in the summary of the show notes so that you have it. And you know what? This is the first year, many years to go. But when it comes to community, it's all about us rallying together. And of course, let's all stay in community and innovation. So thank you very much. That was my brief recap of National Petroleum Day. And now on to what I like to call, it's time to sip that tequila. Or in my case, I'm going to have some coffee this morning. But I want to, of course, welcome Dr. Jenna W. Clack here today because while we just talked about National Petroleum Day and community, we are at the tail end we're in the fourth quarter of this year. And as we head out, I think community and mindset is so important. And so, of course, I'm super excited to have her here. She is, of course, my dear friend and co-creator of hashtag Your Digital Bliss. She is a mindset powerhouse. But if you haven't ever met Dr. Jenna W. Clack, I want to give her a moment to introduce herself.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here, Kat. And it's interesting because my daughter said something about the end of the year last night that I think applies to the end of the quarter. And she's like, "Oh, this is so exciting. It's like the preparation. It's like we're about to start the next year. I feel like the end of the year is just preparing for the next year. So sometimes we can get ahead of ourselves getting into the future. But I feel the same way. So I'm excited to be here and talking about that. My name is Dr. Jenna W. Clack. I am a quantum lifestyle consultant, which really I meld the truth of the scientific knowledge that we have of our hormones and neurohormonal patterns with the truth of your lifestyle and what is most desired for you, your visions, and how we can put those together and create an easy completion that continues on of whatever that dream is for you. My specialty and background, again, is in hormones. I have a degree in pharmacy and a fellowship in anti-aging, metabolic, and functional medicine. So I do have a very practical view of a lot of things. And the practical view is that your intuition is really important and actually quite scientific. So we tie that in to how you're able to achieve well-being, which is at the forefront, how you're able to achieve a lifestyle that you're really enjoying, able to give a contribution, have purpose, be able to be part of the community. And I think it's really nice that we're talking about community today because it is so important. It also shows up so many different ways for each individual. And so as entrepreneurs in general, I think there is a different way of looking at how community can be valuable and truly supportive to us and how we can be part of that. So I'm excited to be here talking about that today. Thank you so much for having me on, Kat.
Thank you again, Dr. Jenna W. Clack, for being on. And of course, we just talked about National Petroleum Day and about the energy sector and, of course, the community in West Texas surrounding it. And I am also a part of course, what we call the channel, which is kind of this, it's so hard to explain what we do, but it's, our suppliers like AT&T and Viasat and all these people, and the channel managers. And of course, myself, your trusted technology advisors and MSP, there's this whole ecosystem. So, but going to that, how do you think community shapes both the success of a business and the mindset of its founder?
Oh, wow. That as far as the success of a business, there's so many variables at how community is going to affect each individual business. But at the core of that, there really is the truth that the support network, just like your cells need support throughout the body with the micronutrients and hormones and everything working well together, the support system of what your community is, your environment is, as an entrepreneur running the business. I think that that's probably the most important part of this because you have organizational systems that are moving forward through your energy. And creating a system that is successful is creating a system that is both stable and adaptable. And I think that can be applied directly into how you want to build your community. You want it to be stable and you also want it to be adaptable. You want it to be able to respond and so that you can be able to respond. So I really feel like when you are looking at the mindset of a founder is incredibly important in the success of everything that we say, quote unquote, rolls downhill, right? So this is the beginning, the center where things are organized and begun. And I believe that when you feel that you are supported in a both stable and adaptable manner, when your community is able to provide that support really for you, you are more inclined to create purposeful change, and you're more inclined to create a successful community for those engaging in whatever business, venture that you're partaking in. So I feel like community completely is connected to the success of your lifestyle, your mindset as a founder, and therefore your success in a business and the success of a business for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Completely.
No, I mean, I definitely agree with you. And, like I was talking, I'm part of the channel, but, I'm also part of Latinas in Podcasting, and I'm, part of Women in Tech and the Entreprenista Network and the Society. I mean, and to a certain extent, I do understand that I need to learn to be like, and say, no, I can't do all that. But at the same time, it's like, we don't want to overextend ourselves, but at the same time, it's allowed me the ability to have these amazing people that, I surround myself with. And, and I would say to a certain extent, it's also allowed me to have that sounding board, because truthfully, especially when you're a business owner, I guess I want to say it this way. I don't think that they're like, it's having that open and honest relationship with other business owners where you can actually talk to them and be like, hey, this is what's going on, and kind of get feedback or like a sounding board. And I think that's huge,
Well, I think that that's an interesting point to make too, because the way that you form community, like you're saying, you're part of these groups where you have some shared mission, purpose, goal, intention. There's some sort of like-mindedness, and you're allowing yourself to grow, particularly in that manner. So it's kind of an interesting thing when you look at intentional community, because it keeps you from connecting out of need, and it allows you to connect from a point of completion. And that's a big thing. If you connect through seeking, I need, and you connect with someone else who needs, and then you need a lot of stuff together. And for a founder, that makes you really unstable, right? So I think that's interesting to think about, is the intentional connections we make through channels. And I know you're using that in a different way, but it's kind of the same concept, right? Through these directional focuses that we have, where we're looking at, how do I feel now? And I want to connect with someone who also has some like-minded connection and a different perspective. So like you said, like a sounding board, there's a new perspective. And how can I make sure that this is something that is aligned? Well, there's a group for that, there's an app for that. There is a connection for that. I think that's nice where the digital part of community comes in, is that it's almost like you can filter to make sure that you're going to, it's like looking for the perfect vacation. You can look for the perfect community and test them out. And, I hear you're going to say, no, I doubt. We'll see, Kat. I agree with you. It's good to focus. But it's also good to try out a lot of things and to see what works for you, because you don't know if you don't try. So I do think it is important to be in that state of, I don't want to say a state of completion, but a state of peace or a state of stability before you look to join. Because if you look to join because you need belonging, it's a much different connection than when you join because you have something to offer or something to, I don't want to say contribute in the way of sounding off, but like that's the best way it came out, is that you have something you want to share. There's something you want to gain. There's something that you want to build with community, and you have an intentional place to put that. It's kind of amazing, the ability that we have to do that. And I think the value that you gain back from, and I know you see the value of doing that, or you wouldn't be continuing to do it, right? The value you gain back from being part of any community you choose to be part of, whether it be formal or informal, is worth the participation. You will never, as a human piece of this beautiful quantum biology that you are, will come away from an interaction and relationship that will leave you with less information. So that's kind of a nice guarantee. And when you do it intentionally, it really does help, for sure.
I don't know why, but for some reason I kept thinking in life, everything is a lesson or a blessing, right? And that's what I think about it. Like, we've all been parts of, let's say, communities or part of an organization where at the end of the day, when we reevaluate it, because I evaluate once a year and I say, all right, here's all the communities I'm a part of, and I want to make sure that I am giving to that community, not just taking from that community, but I also want to make sure it's a good fit for where I'm at and where I want to be. And I think that, it gives you that opportunity, kind of like what you were talking, to really think about, like, what am I bringing to the table? What is the community bringing to the table? Is this cohesive? Is it a good match? And yeah, for sure, those are all things to think about, because you don't want to just be running around, like I say running around, but you don't want to just be parts of organizations that you either don't feel impassioned or you don't have a sense of, I was going to say community, which sounds very generic, but I think you kind of get what I'm throwing down.
Right. Or you're not feeling the vibes, or doesn't feel like you have the same mission, and being okay with, I think it's a good thing to talk about, being okay with growth, with being part of a community at one point that you're no longer is connected to as a new community. Trust that community will gain a new member as you move on to your next thing, and that communities are self-sustaining by the value that they provide. So it's kind of interesting. There's a lot of talk around building a community and making a community and provide. And the truth is that they just, they kind of happen. You can plan to have something happen, but anything false kind of crumbles a little bit quicker. So knowing that, there are organizations that I was part of at the beginning of my journey, which I still support and have friends with and network and everything, that no longer am I supporting the same type of, initiatives that I was supporting at that time. And not because I grew past it, I grew differently, and we all grow differently. So I think that what's really cool is that there is a place for every stage along that growth, and that it's such an empowering thought process to know that there are so many unique niche type of thoughts, industries, like directions to go. And that there is probably a group much larger than you thought. Like, I think of it as the woolly mammoth thing. Like, there's like a lot more of you than you think there are. They're just all in this one section. So I think the digital era allows us to see that a lot more than maybe we saw in the past. And I hope that we continue to see that. And then, like you said, evaluating, OMG, like, how fast did this year go by? And evaluating the interactions that we had. And not only was this valuable to me, but was I able to show up as part of this? Because you contributing in some way, that purpose is so valuable to your self-worth and well-being. And sometimes I think we forget that, I love doing things for this group or this community, this person, this cause, this initiative. I enjoy being involved. And I think that the things that allow you to be excitedly, I was looking for a better word on the way, but it didn't come, but excitedly involved, really like passionately involved in something, those opportunities, those are the ones that you want to prioritize and kind of use the 80-20 rule and throw more energy and space into those. And then also using that 80-20 rule, remembering that there is such value in acquaintance type of community. In, oh my gosh, I know this person that does this thing. I know this person that has an expert opinion on this. I know this person who knows this other person who has this thing that you asked me for, right? Like, it feels like a storybook of connections that are available. So I think there's a big difference in trying to go it alone or just recognizing that there's community. And I think for me, there's a big distinction in, I am very, very, very selectively in community because of the way that everyone works differently, right? So I feel like having the ability to see the value of community and to feel graceful in connection and just allowing yourself to make connection and allowing yourself to reach out. I feel like there's immense value in knowing that you're not only the fish, you're the fish and the ocean and the seaweed and like everything around it. So sometimes it could feel lonely to think you're the only woolly mammoth or you're the only fish in the sea, you know?
I love it. I love when you talk about that because I think about it as like a big school of fish looking more like a shark versus like, one individual fish looking like, I don't want to say vulnerable, but we all
Okay.
know it's vulnerable, right? Um, but I think going along with community, when you were talking about knowing, like being able to say, hey, I know this person, or reach out, or, look at that. I think it can be partially aspirational. Like, I'm part of this community and I see this person doing their thing and amazing and like rocket launching, to the stars. And kind of as we end out this year, because we're going to talk a little bit about, moving forward to this year, because some people have absolutely been like, steady and everything is going smooth, smooth sailing. They signed up for the affirmation bundle, right? Somehow they signed up. And then some people, maybe this year has been turbulent. Maybe they feel like they are in the trials and tribulations bundle, so to speak, versus the affirmation bundle. And either they need to pivot, or maybe they need to just slam that pedal to the floor and be like, we're going to go 100% forward. As you head down that path for the end of the year, what are some of the things that you kind of think about, especially with, business owners and founders. And I even say to a certain extent, like, this could be the time for you to grab your community and say, here's how we're going to move. Like, this is what's going on. How do I move forward? Or maybe it's a time to take a step back and maybe be like, is this really where I want to sit at and be a part of?
I think that's a very beautifully loaded question, Kat. Thanks for all that. No, seriously, I think that it really is a beautiful time for the space for reflection and inspired action. So it's still a space where there is a lot of quote unquote time. We have quite a bit of time, and the time isn't usually as tied down in the fourth quarter. And so we have a lot more open space to be planned for. And a lot of that, I think we try to fill too soon. So I think my top tips would be to evaluate with a mindset of clear boundaries. Evaluate with a mindset of focusing on the goals that are most important, that when you get to next year, you don't want to start at the same spot that you started the previous year with your plan or your resolution and your goals that you have for that next quarter, right? So which are the things that are for sure the most important? Where can you set more clear boundaries and plan for intentional rest? Because I think we a lot of times forget how important the organization of our thoughts can be before we recognize the value of our thoughts. We understand the genius that we have to offer. We understand how great these contributions can be. And I think at this time in the year, it's such a great opportunity to see, in a mindset that helps us in a linear time, look and say, okay, what has been working? What has not been working? What have I accomplished that I knew I would accomplish, that I couldn't believe that I accomplished, that I'm way behind on accomplishing, whatever it happens to be. And when you look at that, I feel like you will be able to see whether you want to or not. And I think that's the big part about this time of the year, is the stop ignoring anything type of time of the year, right? This is if I want to feel successful, whether I'm already on a roll, whether I'm feeling stuck, whether, I feel like I need a break, whatever it is, if I want to feel successful at the end of this year, which is usually when we kind of evaluate those things, what do I honestly, when I'm looking at what I've been doing here, what can I really do to help? And that will be around the centers of focusing on a few goals, right? Kind of like narrowing it down for the period that we have here to work with. It will be on setting very clear boundaries and on allowing for rest. And in that rest, I feel like intentional rest, like hearts and kisses to Netflix and chill, but I mean more of like meditative states, right? So that you're allowing yourself to create mental space and stretching for physical space and allowing yourself to, I say like room to work in the kitchen, right? Like the difference between cooking a meal in a small or cluttered kitchen versus a large and organized kitchen. It's the same thought process of trying to end this last part of the year by doing everything. So by saying that, I will also say that while it seems like there can be more spacious feelings around the end of the year because of holiday and this and that, it also seems like this is the most overbooked time of the year for some reason, because I think we overestimate the free time, free space, and underestimate how much we need to rest when we are interacting with community. That community is great. It is amazing. It is necessary. It is the support system and why we're living was here for each other. We're part of an environmental community that wherever we are. However, when you're interacting in more and more social situations and more emotionally charged situations around this time of year, I think that it can really derail you if you don't have proper boundaries. And so I do feel like this is the perfect time to evaluate and reestablish boundaries that keep you healthy and well so that you can continue to contribute and interact in a way that's most beneficial.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you talk about that because kind of as we look forward, there are people who are like, okay, we're the last quarter. We're not where we need to be. So let's, slam it down all the way and, per se, neglect taking the moment to, okay, breathe in. What can we focus on? How can we do? And, I think you really, you hit the nail on the head because looking forward, we were looking at doing an event. I say we, Shelby Technology Solutions coming up. And I was talking with an event planner. And one of the things that we talked about was the fact that really you have the last week in October or the first week in November. And after that, it's Christmas parties, it's every holidays, it's everybody getting together. And, so you're thinking about, and maybe it's a focus thing, like, okay, do we do an in-person event or do we focus on what is our holiday offering going to be? What are we going to look at? And of course, I come from a tech perspective. So it's like, I guess it's kind of twofold. I come from a tech perspective. I also work in what, B2B, business to business, right? So there's two things that happen. And I've run into this, I don't want to say every single year, but almost universally, where all of a sudden, things that people have put off for the first 3 quarters of the year, they're like, hey, we want to move forward. We've decided like we want to do this. And what it is they're about to have to decide what their budget is for next year. And they're being told, hey, you have this excess budget. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. Or they're being told you need to build a case to have this budget going forward, And the secondary thing is, and I think you'll see this a lot. You'll see this with things coming up. You'll see holiday promotions. You'll see all of these things, and they all take planning, right? And I think some of that planning stage may feel like a rest, but really what it is it's the preparation for success or the preparation for winning.
I like that. And I think that that's the part that's so important. I think that sometimes when we have space, we panic and try to fill it. Instead of like, I have space because something is on its way and I need to be prepared. And I feel like this last part of the year, we can sometimes feel like we need to complete. And I'm going to go on more of my daughter's feeling of how this end of the year is and say, I think it's more of a ramp, a running start. I feel like it's more of a preparation. I don't feel like it's the end of this year. I feel like it's the beginning of next year almost, right? So that's that's personally how I feel that not only would be advantageous to look at it that way, I also feel like it's always best to look at things in a way that gets you inspired, that gets you ready to do it with vigor, with excitement. And I believe that looking at what we have accomplished so far and what's worked and what hasn't worked, it allows you to reframe this next step. So you can see the courage that you've had to continue. You can be grateful for the clarity that you have in moving forward. You can see the progress. There's always, always, always progress. So I feel that there's a big excitement that comes along with this ramping up, but that space that comes before, where you say, like, it might feel like nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden everything happens. It's the ice rush in the glass, right? You're waiting. Mm-hmm. So take a deep breath and prepare, because that's going to be the most probably the most effective thing for you. And what do you think people should be doing to plan for their tech in the final quarter? Do you feel like it is usually a reaction and there's a way that it could be more responsive? Should they be reaching out to you sooner? Like, what? I mean, obviously that, but
no, I was only laughing because I think every advisor, every MSP, anybody who deals with techs, we've all gotten that call with a client who we've worked with forever that's like, hey, so I'm moving to a new building next week. Oh, we need to get everything moved. And, and of course, I spent a lot of time in West Texas. So people move out to West County Road 387 or somewhere way out in the boondocks. And they're like, yeah, can't we just get our fiber moved? And I'm like, whoa, you said next week?
Right. Right.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, I think it's a checklist thing, things get missed, but I really think the big thing is that now is the optimum time to start planning for how this year went. Like, let's look at our tech. Let's see, what are the big projects that we want to have going forward, whether that's this quarter or the beginning of next year. I also think it's a big time to reevaluate, of course, your cybersecurity posture, because if it's kind of been a little shaky, there's no better time than now to do so. And of course, I will always tell people, if you have not done your vulnerability scans, your penetration testing, you want to make sure you have those done at this is, I would say, as strongly as I can, the bare minimum once a year, but you really should be doing them more often than that. But at least that, I think a lot of it is about planning. And when you ask that, it makes me think of a client that I've been working with for a long time. And one of the things that has held them back from moving forward is they're like, well, once we have this, we'll move forward. Right. Once we have this, we'll move forward. Well, now they're at a place where they have this, and now it's like, oh, but we're getting complaints from our customers. We're getting this going on. And so I think it's a really good time, especially the end of the year, to reevaluate what does that look like. I always say it's your return on investment, but it's, are you planning to set yourself up for success? If that makes,
No, it makes so much sense. And I'm such a nerd, because as you were talking, I was thinking, like, same thing, like my clients who go ahead and do the full package with education and have like a schedule to move forward on, see so much more benefit and wellness and integration, because they have all the tools in place at the particular time where integration is most effective, right? So when we know your micronutrients, we're able to be much more effective with your supplementation. When we know your hormone levels, we're able to be much more effective with your lifestyle implementations and our anti-aging or regenerative efforts. We're so much more able to do that. Then when you have the education, when you also implement it and put it on your side of things, it helps things to move forward in comparison to, okay, well, we'll wait and do that if I need to, it's required, if it comes to it type of situation. And first of all, it always comes to it, because when you're talking to an advisor, when your advisor is telling you they're working for you, right? So they're doing the thing that's going to be best for you. That's the idea here, at least. And so to see the difference of implementing at a time that it's effective and implementing at the level that you're requesting, right? Like if you want these results, this is what would be best. And seeing how your return on investment is so much better, right? Like whether you're talking about your fiber and your, internet systems and everything that's working forward on your client side, or if you're talking about your well-being and making sure that you're able to have energy during the day and feel like you're purposeful and part of something, it's all connected in how your business is moving forward, how you're moving forward, how your community is being supported, and you're being supported by your community. So it's kind of interesting that the key is to go ahead and talk to someone. First of all, like go ahead and make the communication, like stop waiting and trying to figure everything out yourself. I'm like talking to myself and some people I know and some situations that so like, that's the thing is, right? Like, this is a good time to go ahead and reach out and make the communication, because the communication is only going to start whatever process you do or don't do. So start the communication is going to be that kind of like first thing, and then choose the implementation and commit to it. Like this is the time to make the communications, choose your implementations, and kind of like you're saying, narrow them down. Like, let's focus. There is this last little run, and whether you look at it as the sprint at the end or the sprint off the diving board, whether you look at it as the last quarter or, the pre-quarter to next year, I feel like those are going to be the things that really give you the biggest return on investment, is just through our conversation, is making that connection and then narrowing in and committing to what that is, right?
Yeah, no, it's funny because when you were talking about that, I was thinking about something I saw this morning, and it was talking about people who desire AI. And it's like, what do you want? And it's like, AI. Why do you want it? We don't know. And then it's like, when do you want it? Now. And I think it's so funny because we have all this amazing technology, and maybe this is taking a little bit back to communities. We have these beautiful ways to build communities, whether you're like in real life right next to each other, or you're, out in the global worldwide, right? But I think when we're working through this, whether it's AI, whether it's this, I think a lot of it is about taking the space to really, really take a look at what you have. Think about like, how do I want to move forward? What's most important to me? And I always, I talk to people because, I talk about the things that can hurt you. You got time, you've got money, you've got reputation. But the other thing is, technology can do so much for you about helping you connect with your clients and helping you connect with your customers and helping you keep your customers and your clients safe. I mean, I could just go on and on about this, but I mean, this is more of like,
well, I think I can hear that, like what I have noticed, or what I feel to be true, and I feel is connected to this, is that you can use it as a tool if you're not trying to use it as a cheat code. When you try to use it as a cheat code, that's not real connection. That's not, that's just kind of like mass sprinkling. Like even when you sprinkle a cupcake, you don't sprinkle and just put stuff everywhere. You put it right on the cupcake, right? So when you're using AI, using it to make connections, to find ways to make connections more authentic, more genuine, more efficient, so that those connections can continue on. And I think there's a big difference in using it to try to make money faster, or using it to enhance the type of information you're delivering, right? Like those are very two different perspectives of how to use that. So I do hear like there are so many tools. When you say like step back and look at what you have, that might be the lesson for all of it, is step back and look at what you have, so that you can decide how you're going to move forward, because there's so much available right now.
No. And I think that's huge because, obviously I work in tech, and some of the things I work with is people with like network infrastructure and, we use all these terms like shadow IT and all these things, but I think what you just said, it's taking a step to look at exactly what you have, having that first step and taking that technology review and bringing to the table, here's my internet service provider, here's this, and letting your tech advisor, your MSP, whoever you work with, really take a deep dive and go, okay, here's what you have, here's what you're paying for, here's what you're using, and here's my recommendations going forward from what you have told me. It's making it a collaborative effort. So almost kind of like building a community, since that's the word of the day.
I was like, I know she's about to build this right around. She's about to connect this.
I'm about to make it come full circle.
I love it.
That's right.
I love it.
No, you know what? I think this has been a great talk. We've talked about obviously five female leaders in tech, five things going on in tequila about leadership and, tech facts. We've talked about the first annual National Petroleum Day. And of course, we had the lovely Dr. Jenna W. Clack on here. So before we end this out, I wanted to find out, what are some practical things that you think someone can do, moving forward into the last quarter?
Okay, so in some way or fashion, we're always going to work it in here because it's the truth. And to have some sort of a reflection, like we were talking about here, look at what you have, observation. And my recommendation would be to do a very steady and dedicated meditation, whatever that means for you. I think that's really important. And I think that gives you an opportunity to truly reflect and to look back on what has been this year, right? What has been here, and also in general reflecting on what is now for you. What do I feel internally within myself? What are the emotions that are creating my epigenetic state and the potential for success that I have? So I think reflecting and then allowing yourself to connect or even reconnect more deeply with those aligned entities. So you can reflect, then you can connect to what is helping you shine brightest, helping you feel most clarity. And then with that intention that you have, so you can find the clarity, you can intensify the connections that feel best. And then that leaves you in a whole new space, and allowing yourself to reset that baseline, that foundation that you have to move forward is instrumental in allowing yourself to create what's next. So I feel like really the part that people usually skip, I'm going to emphasize one more time again here, is that getting in a really quiet space for the reflection, allowing yourself to sit with yourself, feel the feelings, connect to what is most aligned with what feels best for you. And that will put you in a place of a new foundation to move forward. So I feel like it's a very practical thing to do at this time. Anytime really, but this time is prime time.
I could not agree more. And I want to thank you again for joining us today. I think we've covered some amazing topics. Obviously, Dr. Jenna W. Clack, you have brought the wisdom, the community, clarity, and of course, courage for the last quarter. So we have, I would say 4 more months. Do we have 4 more months? September, October, November, and December. Yeah, 4 more months. I had to think that out in my head. And of course, I want to thank everyone who is listening today. So, my takeaway would be for anyone listening to this podcast is walk away. Like, at this point, do you need to accelerate? Do you need to buckle down? Is it time to pivot? But whatever you choose, remember that you're not alone out there. That, you have this huge community around you. Don't be afraid to reach out and say, hey, I need a lifeline, or today's been rough. Maybe just, I can speak as a female. Sometimes you just need that 15-minute conversation with your girlfriend to be like, hey, I know everything's going to be all right. And as my husband likes to say, every day above ground is a blessing. So that will be my end for this. I think we took it on a serious note, which we normally don't do. But until next time, this is Tech and Tequila, where good conversation, like good tequila, should always be savored. Thank you so much. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Tech and Tequila. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. To stay updated about all things tech and more, don't forget to visit us at our website, shelbyts.com. If you loved what you heard, remember to show your support by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our podcast. Your 5-star ratings and reviews mean the world to us and help us to reach more listeners just like you. So muchas gracias again for joining us with Tech and Tequila. Thank you so much. You learned a lot about tech, and maybe you had a nice drink of tequila.